this is going to be a major psychological level for Bitcoin to try to get through. It doesn't mean it can't pierce it, like you said. I mean, it's already pierced 30,000. So I'm looking to see, okay, well, what happens here at 30,000 and change level? And if it gets rejected, do we break this level? If it breaks, well, then the next level is right here.
Gareth Soloway, osnivač je In the Money Stock kompanije i jedan je od cenjenih trgovaca i investitora. Pogledajte ovaj video do kraja i steknite uvid u njegovu trenutnu, tromesečnu i dugoročnu analizu Bitcoina i ostalih kriptovaluta. Ovaj video sponzorisan je od strane MEXC Global menjačnice. MEXC Global menjačnica je jedna od menjačnica sa najboljom likvidnošću za futures trgovanje. Pored Bitcoina i Ethera, na ovoj menjačnici možete kupiti i preko 200 manje poznatih coina i tokena. Link ka menjačnici sa kodovima za popust nalazi se u opisu ovog videa.
You basically have Bitcoin now just, number one, piercing the even numbers. So I'm not sure in trading how much you pay attention to even numbers, but I found in trading that, number one, the retail investor puts stops at even numbers. So number one, generally those stops will get taken out because the algos will pierce them, which will then take out the short stop. And ultimately it gets max euphoria, right? When you see all of a sudden a 3 instead of a 2 in front of Bitcoin, 20,000s to 30, it just creates that like, oh, I got to get in now because here goes the run. And those usually denote short-term tops. But then also what I think is fascinating on Bitcoin is that you have so much former trading areas right in this 30,000 level, right? So if we look at the bull market from 2021, when it dumped out, this was the low. So psychologically, and you can see it right over here too, before it broke down, that was a huge, huge level. So it makes sense that right around 30,000, this is going to be a major psychological level for Bitcoin to try to get through. It doesn't mean it can't pierce it, like you said. I mean, it's already pierced 30,000. But for me, this is the big level to test whether or not can it get above this level and then can it hold above this level. So yeah, it's interesting, really interesting.
Would you say that's one of your invalidation points to the downside? Do you still think 15.5 will be broken?
Yeah, so this is my key level. So for me, if it were to get above this area here, let's say 30,500 is kind of that line in the sand, down sloping line, flat line. So if we were to stay above this for a certain amount of days and really start establishing it as a support level, then I think you have to say that the low is probably in, right? Based on that. Now, if we gets rejected here and we start breaking some of these technical supports, then I do think that things could get nasty very, very quickly, especially if we see the stock market take a big leg down, the risk off trade start to come back in. So to me, this is a huge level for me psychologically. Like there's got to be so much. I mean, just think about this. Like think about the people that bought Bitcoin here and then they thought they were just, going to print money to 100,000 to beyond. And then they came back, they're like, okay, I'm break even. And all of a sudden they find themselves back in. So there's a lot of those people psychologically that'll say, okay, this is a level, I'm back to even after being down 50%. Let me exit the trade at this point. So it just creates a lot of resistance.
Do you remember that from 2019? And we had that support at 5,800, 6,000? I was in the camp too. I thought we were going to get some resistance there. And the thing just shot straight through to 8,000. I was like, oh, yeah. So obviously, we're both prepared for that. But like logically speaking, you would expect something like that could occur.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So the volume for lows, you can see here, this was November. That's the, I'll put it on candle so it makes it a bit fatter for everyone. Extreme volume. So I'm on Coinbase. We know that Coinbase had some pretty significant volume in the last several years. And prior to that, it wasn't one of the primary exchanges. But extreme volume at lows when the market couldn't push any lower typically means that the low is in. You can see we had the capitulation and the price really didn't go that much further from June. This was the FTX collapse and that was the Celsius Voyager BlockFi collapse. And then the price pretty much on big volume again broke back to the upside and took out all of that fear from the last 6 months. So if we do get a pullback, I want to see where the high comes in first, maybe in that mid 30s, and then we'll have a look to somewhere in the high 20s to low 30s as a pullback range. But I mean, bottoms have just, they always, almost always, at least in cryptocurrency, form on massive volume. Yep. You can see the COVID crash. And it starts to make sense when you think about it. There's a lot of trading going on. You've got retail getting extremely fearful. FTX collapse, the biggest thing that we're seeing, almost like a black swan event for crypto. Yep. At that point, lots of people selling, lots of smart money buying up. That's why the price came to a stopping point, you know, like stopping volume. And then it turned around. Like it just couldn't push any lower. So I take a lot of the mainstream narratives and the market sentiment, because remember after FTX collapsed, it was, they started targeting Binance. Binance had to collapse. Crypto.com had to collapse. Qcoin had to collapse. They went after, I forget now, but they just basically go after everything. And it happens every single time. And it was only 4 months later, which SVB collapsed and Silvergate collapsed, that you see the news go after the next bank and the next bank and the next bank, and Bank of America is going to go down and JP Morgan is going to go down. It's like, okay, it's 1 month on, didn't happen. Right. So when I see that enough times, it's like, it just really starts to cement that bottom's probably in, because they don't have any more fear left. Like the narrative has run out, and they don't have any more ammo left to scare people.
So basically, at least for me on the charts, this was resistance right here around this 28,700 level, right? We kept on piercing it, and then finally we've moved it through it. So what's interesting is, and you know this from technical analysis, is when you break resistance, it now becomes support. So now on the way back down, let's say it gets rejected at this 30 and change level, this now becomes support. If it gets through there, then this level now becomes support. So there's a bunch of supports that were established because of all this sideways consolidation. So it's going to take a hefty sell to get us back through that. That's where things get more interesting. If we do get rejected and we get through this area, you then start trading towards the 25,000 level, and eventually you can retest some of these lower levels. But for me, yeah, I mean, right now, I'm a trader that is very focused level by level. So I'm looking to see, okay, well, what happens here at 30,000 and change level? And if it gets rejected, do we break this level? If it breaks, well, then the next level is right here. And I'm just kind of a step-by-step trader in that respect. And again, that's part of the shorter-term mindset of what I do. It's just like, okay, that's been broken. Now you look for the next one. And if that one doesn't get broken, then you look and kind of focus on that.